For many years, scientists searched for natural substances that could influence the way diseases develop. One fascinating discovery began in an unexpected place, not with an expensive experiment, but with a collection of biological samples that most researchers considered useless. A young scientist, Dr. James Waterling, was handed a large set of archived urine samples that had already served their original research purpose. Instead of throwing them away, his research team encouraged him to examine them more closely in hopes of finding something worth studying. The project initially focused on hormones naturally produced by the human body. As expected, the samples contained estrogen and other familiar biological compounds. However, while reviewing the laboratory data, Dr. James Waterling noticed an unusual signal that didn't match anything commonly found in human hormone research. Curious about the unexpected result, he isolated the mysterious compound for further analysis. After several rounds of testing, the answer became clear. The unfamiliar substance wasn't produced by the human body at all. Instead, it originated from a food many people consume regularly, soybeans. The compound was identified as genistein, a naturally occurring plant chemical that belongs to a group known as phytoestrogens. At first, many researchers questioned whether this discovery had any real importance. Since the compound came from food rather than human tissue, some believed it had little relevance to medical science. Rather than dismissing the finding, however, Dr. James Waterling decided to investigate its biological activity. His team introduced genistein into laboratory systems commonly used to study how tumors grow and spread. They wanted to observe whether this natural compound had any measurable effect on cancer cells. The results surprised everyone involved. Instead of encouraging tumor growth, genistein interfered with one of cancer's most important survival mechanisms, the formation of new blood vessels. Solid tumors depend on a constant supply of oxygen and nutrients. To obtain these resources, they release chemical signals that encourage nearby blood vessels to grow toward the cancer. This process, known as angiogenesis, allows tumors to expand over time. When genistein was added to experimental models, researchers observed a significant reduction in this blood vessel development. Without an expanding network of vessels, cancer cells struggled to receive the nourishment they needed. This observation marked an important step in understanding that certain foods naturally contain compounds capable of influencing biological processes related to disease. For Dr. James Waterling, the discovery reshaped the direction of his research. Instead of viewing food only as a source of calories and nutrients, he began exploring how naturally occurring plant compounds might interact with the body's own defense systems. Over time, this work contributed to a broader scientific field examining how nutrition may support healthy cellular function alongside conventional medical care. The soybean became one of the earliest examples of a common food containing naturally active molecules worthy of serious scientific investigation. Unfortunately, as the discovery spread beyond research laboratories, the story became increasingly misunderstood. People learned that soy contains substances called phytoestrogens, but many stopped reading before understanding what the term actually meant. Since some forms of breast cancer respond to the body's estrogen, many assumed that eating soy would automatically increase estrogen activity and make the disease worse. That assumption sounded logical on the surface, but it overlooked a critical scientific detail. The word phytoestrogen simply means a plant-derived compound with limited structural similarities to certain hormones. It does not mean that these molecules behave exactly like human estrogen inside the body. As information passed from one person to another, simplified explanations gradually evolved into widespread misconceptions. Articles, blogs, and social media posts often repeated incomplete interpretations without examining the underlying research. Dr. James Waterling believed this highlighted an important lesson about science itself. Initial observations are only the beginning of discovery. Real understanding requires careful experimentation, repeated testing, and the willingness to challenge assumptions when new evidence appears. As research into soy continued, scientists realized that one of the biggest obstacles wasn't the laboratory. It was public misunderstanding. A simple misconception gradually spread through magazines, television programs, internet articles, and social media until many people believed soy should be completely avoided, especially by women concerned about breast cancer. The confusion centered around one word: phytoestrogen. Many people heard that certain breast cancers are influenced by the body's estrogen. They also learned that soy contains compounds called phytoestrogens. Without looking deeper into the science, they connected the two ideas and assumed that soy would act exactly like human estrogen inside the body. It sounded reasonable at first glance, but biology is rarely that simple. Dr. James Waterling explained that scientific terms often describe similarities rather than identical behavior. Just because two substances share part of a name doesn't mean they produce the same biological effects. To understand why, researchers compared the chemical structures of human estrogen and soy-derived phytoestrogens. Although both interact with hormone-related pathways, they are built very differently at the molecular level. Those structural differences matter. Inside the body are specialized proteins known as estrogen receptors. Human estrogen binds to these receptors in a very specific way, triggering biological responses that regulate many normal functions throughout life. Phytoestrogens, however, behave differently. Rather than simply copying human estrogen, many studies suggest they may compete for these receptors or influence them much more gently. In certain situations, this interaction can actually reduce the strength of estrogen signaling instead of increasing it. In other words, the plant compound doesn't necessarily add more estrogen. Depending on the biological environment, it may help moderate how estrogen receptors respond. This distinction changed the scientific conversation. Instead of viewing soy as a hormone booster, researchers began asking whether its naturally occurring compounds could actually help maintain healthier cellular regulation. To answer that question, laboratory experiments alone weren't enough. Scientists needed evidence from real people. Over the following years, researchers launched large population studies involving thousands of women diagnosed with breast cancer. These studies carefully tracked dietary habits, treatment outcomes, recurrence rates, and long-term survival. One of the most influential investigations followed approximately 5,000 women who had already been diagnosed and treated for breast cancer. These participants represented a group at particularly high risk because they had previously experienced the disease. Researchers wanted to know whether soy consumption influenced their recovery over several years. After analyzing the data, an interesting pattern emerged. Women who regularly included moderate amounts of soy foods in their diets generally experienced better long-term outcomes than women who consumed very little. Researchers observed lower overall mortality rates and fewer cancer recurrences among higher soy consumers. Importantly, these women continued receiving standard medical care. Surgery, chemotherapy, radiation therapy, hormonal treatment, and physician supervision remained the foundation of their cancer treatment. Soy was never presented as a replacement for medical therapy. Instead, the findings suggested that dietary choices might provide additional support alongside evidence-based treatment. Dr. James Waterling often emphasized this distinction. Nutrition should complement professional medical care, not replace it. As more scientists examined the evidence, additional clinical investigations were launched across different countries and populations. Over time, multiple independent studies reached similar conclusions. Although each study had its own design, participant characteristics, and follow-up period, the overall trend remained remarkably consistent. Researchers repeatedly found that moderate soy consumption was not associated with worse outcomes among women with breast cancer. In many cases, participants who regularly consumed traditional soy foods demonstrated equal or even improved long-term survival compared with those who rarely ate soy. This growing body of evidence gradually challenged years of misinformation. It also illustrated an important principle in medical research. A single study rarely provides all the answers. Scientific confidence grows when independent researchers reproduce similar findings across different populations using different methods. That process of replication strengthens conclusions and reduces the likelihood that results occurred by chance. Dr. James Waterling encouraged people to remain curious rather than fearful when evaluating health information. Headlines often focus on dramatic claims, but reliable medical advice comes from carefully reviewing the total body of scientific evidence instead of isolated reports or internet rumors. While soy became one of the earliest foods studied for its unique plant compounds, researchers soon realized it was only one piece of a much larger picture. As scientific investigations expanded, evidence began showing that many everyday foods contain naturally occurring molecules capable of supporting the body's normal defense systems. Rather than relying on a single superfood, scientists discovered that a wide variety of plant-based foods work together to promote long-term health. Dr. James Waterling explains that one of the body's most important biological processes is the growth of blood vessels. Under normal conditions, this process is essential for healing wounds, repairing tissues, and delivering oxygen and nutrients throughout the body. However, when blood vessel growth becomes uncontrolled, it may also support the development of diseases, including certain forms of cancer. Healthy blood vessel formation is all about balance. The body constantly produces signals that encourage new vessels to grow when needed, and signals that stop growth once the job is complete. Problems arise when this balance is disrupted. This is where nutrition becomes especially interesting. Researchers have identified numerous foods that contain natural compounds capable of supporting the body's normal regulation of blood vessel growth. These foods don't function like prescription medications, nor are they intended to replace medical treatment. Instead, they may provide beneficial plant chemicals that work alongside the body's natural biological systems. One group of foods that has received significant attention is the cruciferous vegetable family. This includes broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, kale, bok choy, and even turnips. These vegetables contain sulfur-rich compounds that become biologically active when the vegetables are chopped or chewed. Among the best known of these compounds is sulforaphane, which has been widely studied for its potential role in supporting healthy cellular function and helping regulate inflammation. Scientists continue exploring how sulforaphane interacts with pathways involved in cell protection and normal blood vessel development. Colorful berries have also attracted considerable scientific interest. Blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries are naturally rich in polyphenols and antioxidants that help protect cells from oxidative stress. Strawberries, in particular, contain a naturally occurring compound called ellagic acid, which researchers have investigated for its potential to support normal cellular health. During laboratory research, scientists observed that extracts from certain berries influence biological pathways involved in blood vessel formation. These early findings encouraged further studies into how diets rich in fruits may contribute to overall wellness. Tree nuts are another category of foods frequently examined in nutrition research. Walnuts, almonds, pistachios, macadamia nuts, hazelnuts, and pine nuts provide healthy unsaturated fats, fiber, vitamins, minerals, and plant compounds that support cardiovascular health. Regular nut consumption has been associated with improved heart health and reduced inflammation in numerous population studies. Tomatoes also continue to receive attention because they are one of the richest dietary sources of lycopene, a carotenoid responsible for their deep red color. Lycopene has been studied for its antioxidant properties and its potential contribution to maintaining healthy cells. Dr. James Waterling notes that discussions about foods often become dominated by internet myths. Every few years, one ingredient becomes labeled as dangerous, while another is promoted as a miracle cure. In reality, nutrition science is rarely so extreme. Instead of fearing individual foods based on headlines or social media trends, researchers encourage focusing on dietary patterns built around a variety of minimally processed plant foods. Green tea is another beverage that has attracted worldwide scientific attention. Its leaves naturally contain compounds known as catechins, particularly epigallocatechin gallate EGCG, which have been extensively studied for their antioxidant activity. When tea leaves are steeped in hot water, many of these beneficial compounds dissolve into the drink. Numerous laboratory and observational studies suggest that green tea polyphenols may help support healthy cellular function, reduce oxidative stress, and contribute to cardiovascular wellness. Researchers are also investigating how these compounds influence pathways related to normal blood vessel regulation. Dr. James Waterling emphasizes that no single food can prevent or cure disease on its own. However, consistently eating a diverse diet rich in vegetables, fruits, legumes, nuts, whole grains, and other nutrient-dense foods may help strengthen the body's natural protective systems over time. Medical treatment remains essential whenever illness develops, but everyday food choices offer an opportunity to support overall health long before disease appears. Rather than searching for miracle ingredients, the greatest benefit comes from building lifelong eating habits centered on variety, balance, and evidence-based nutrition. Among the many beverages studied for their health-promoting compounds, green tea continues to receive significant attention from researchers around the world. For centuries, it has been enjoyed in many cultures, but only in recent decades have scientists begun to understand why it has attracted so much interest in nutritional research. According to Dr. James Waterling, green tea contains a unique group of naturally occurring plant compounds known as catechins. These powerful polyphenols act as antioxidants, helping protect cells from damage caused by unstable molecules known as free radicals. Scientists have also investigated their potential role in supporting cardiovascular health, regulating inflammation, and maintaining normal cellular function. When hot water is poured over green tea leaves, many of these beneficial compounds are released into the liquid. Drinking freshly brewed green tea allows people to consume a portion of these natural plant chemicals. However, even after brewing, some valuable nutrients remain trapped inside the leaves. This observation led researchers to compare traditional green tea with another well-known variety, matcha. Although both come from the same plant, their cultivation and preparation are quite different. Several weeks before harvest, matcha plants are intentionally grown under shade. By reducing their exposure to direct sunlight, the plants respond by producing higher concentrations of chlorophyll and protective plant compounds, including additional polyphenols. After harvesting, the youngest leaves are carefully steamed, dried, and ground into an extremely fine powder. Unlike ordinary green tea, where the leaves are discarded after steeping, matcha allows the entire leaf to be consumed. Because the powdered leaf is mixed directly into water, the drink contains everything naturally present in the leaf, including fiber and a greater concentration of beneficial plant nutrients. This is one reason matcha has such a rich color and thicker texture compared to regular brewed tea. Researchers have explored whether these higher concentrations of polyphenols provide additional biological benefits. Laboratory studies have suggested that matcha may possess stronger antioxidant activity than conventional green tea, although scientists continue to investigate how these findings translate into long-term human health. One particularly interesting area of research involves cancer stem cells. To understand this topic, it helps to know what stem cells are. Stem cells are remarkable, cells capable of developing into many different types of specialized cells throughout the body. During early human development, stem cells give rise to organs, muscles, skin, bones, nerves, and every other tissue required for life. Even after birth, small populations of stem cells remain in the body, helping repair damaged tissues and supporting normal healing throughout life. Cancer researchers have discovered that some tumors may also contain a small group of cells with stem-like properties. These are often referred to as cancer stem cells. Unlike most tumor cells, these specialized cells may survive treatment and retain the ability to produce new cancer cells later. Scientists believe they could play a role in recurrence for certain cancers, although this remains an active area of research. Dr. James Waterling explains that understanding these cells has become one of the major goals of modern oncology. Laboratory experiments performed by several research groups have reported that compounds found in matcha may influence cancer stem cells under controlled experimental conditions. These findings generated excitement because they suggested that naturally occurring plant compounds might interact with biological pathways. Scientists are still trying to understand. However, laboratory studies are only the first step. Results observed in cell cultures or animal models do not automatically mean the same effects occur in humans. Large clinical trials are necessary before researchers can determine whether these laboratory findings translate into meaningful medical outcomes. Even so, the research has encouraged scientists to continue exploring how dietary patterns rich in plant-based foods may complement traditional medical care. Dr. James Waterling emphasizes an important point. Foods like matcha are not treatments for cancer and should never replace surgery, chemotherapy, radiation therapy, immunotherapy, or medications prescribed by qualified healthcare professionals. Instead, they represent one part of a broader lifestyle approach that includes balanced nutrition, regular physical activity, adequate sleep, stress management, and evidence-based medical care. In recent years, scientists have discovered that the digestive system does much more than process food. Inside the human gut lives a vast community of microorganisms, often called the gut microbiome, that communicate with many parts of the body, including the immune system, metabolism, and even the brain. Researchers now recognize that these tiny organisms play an important role in maintaining overall health. According to Dr. James Waterling, one microorganism that has attracted increasing scientific attention is Lactobacillus reuteri. This naturally occurring probiotic bacterium has been studied for its potential effects on immune function, inflammation, digestive health, and communication between the gut and the brain. Scientists often describe this connection as the gut-brain axis, a communication network that allows signals to travel between the digestive tract and the central nervous system. Although these microorganisms are microscopic, their influence may extend far beyond digestion. Research suggests that certain beneficial bacteria produce substances that interact with nerves, immune cells, and hormones. Through these pathways, the gut can send chemical messages that influence how the brain functions. One hormone frequently discussed in this area of research is oxytocin. Oxytocin is sometimes called the bonding hormone because it plays an important role in social interaction, childbirth, breastfeeding, and emotional connection between people. It is naturally released during moments of trust, affection, and close physical contact. For example, oxytocin levels rise when a mother nurses her newborn, helping strengthen the bond between parent and child. Positive social experiences such as hugging loved ones, spending meaningful time with family, or sharing moments of emotional closeness may also stimulate its release. Scientists have been exploring whether beneficial gut bacteria may indirectly influence oxytocin production through the gut-brain axis. Some laboratory studies involving animals have suggested that Lactobacillus reuteri may affect neurological pathways associated with oxytocin release. While these findings are promising, researchers emphasize that much more human research is needed before drawing firm conclusions. Even so, the studies demonstrate how closely connected the digestive system and nervous system truly are. Beyond brain signaling, Lactobacillus reuteri has also been investigated for its effects on the immune system. Approximately 70% of the body's immune cells are associated with the digestive tract. Because of this, maintaining a healthy balance of gut microorganisms may support normal immune function. Scientists continue to examine how probiotics influence inflammation, immune regulation, and the body's natural defenses against harmful microorganisms. Another interesting area of research involves oral health. The mouth contains hundreds of different bacterial species. Some are beneficial, while others contribute to tooth decay and gum disease. Several studies have suggested that Lactobacillus reuteri may help maintain a healthier balance of oral bacteria by reducing the growth of microorganisms associated with cavities and gum inflammation. Although regular brushing, flossing, and dental care remain essential, researchers are exploring whether probiotics could become another useful tool for supporting oral health. Dr. James Waterling also notes that probiotic foods have changed significantly over the past several decades. Traditionally prepared fermented foods often contained a diverse variety of living microorganisms because they were produced using natural fermentation methods. As commercial food production became more standardized, many products were modified to improve shelf life, consistency, and large-scale manufacturing. As a result, some modern products may contain fewer live bacterial strains than traditionally fermented versions. For this reason, consumers interested in probiotic foods should read product labels carefully. Some yogurts and fermented dairy products list the specific bacterial cultures they contain, while others do not. Not every yogurt provides the same probiotic benefits. Researchers encourage looking for products that clearly identify their live bacterial cultures if probiotics are the goal dot. As scientists continued exploring the role of beneficial bacteria in human health, they discovered that these microorganisms are found not only in supplements, but also in a variety of traditionally fermented foods. For generations, cultures around the world have relied on natural fermentation to preserve food, often without realizing that the same process also encourages the growth of helpful microbes. According to Dr. James Waterling, one of the best-known examples is authentic sourdough bread. Real sourdough is created through a slow fermentation process using a living starter culture that contains naturally occurring yeasts and beneficial bacteria. During fermentation, these microorganisms produce organic acids that give sourdough its distinctive tangy flavor and unique texture. Traditional bakers have carefully maintained these starter cultures for decades, sometimes even centuries, passing them from one generation to the next. Each new batch of dough receives a small portion of the previous starter, allowing the microbial community to continue thriving over time. However, not every loaf labeled sourdough is produced using this traditional method. Some commercially manufactured breads imitate the flavor of sourdough by adding acids or flavoring agents rather than allowing a true fermentation process to occur. While these products may taste similar, they do not necessarily contain the same naturally developed microbial profile associated with authentic sourdough fermentation. For people interested in fermented foods, learning how products are made can be just as important as reading the name on the package. Another traditional food that has attracted scientific interest is Parmigiano Reggiano, the authentic Italian cheese produced according to strict regional standards. During its lengthy aging process, naturally occurring microorganisms help shape the cheese's flavor, aroma, and texture. Researchers continue investigating how traditional fermentation influences the microbial composition of foods such as aged cheeses. Although cheese can provide nutrients such as calcium and protein, Dr. James Waterling reminds viewers that moderation remains important because many cheeses are also high in sodium and saturated fat. Even nutritious foods should be consumed as part of a balanced dietary pattern rather than in excessive amounts. The conversation about beneficial bacteria extends beyond digestion and nutrition. Scientists have also explored whether certain probiotics may influence the body's ability to repair damaged tissues. In laboratory studies involving animals, researchers observed that some probiotic strains appeared to support faster wound healing compared with control groups. These findings suggest that microorganisms may influence immune responses and tissue repair through complex biological pathways. While these early studies are encouraging, researchers emphasize that animal experiments are only the beginning. Additional human clinical trials are necessary before determining whether the same effects occur consistently in people. Throughout his work, Dr. James Waterling stresses an important principle. Scientific discoveries should inspire curiosity rather than unrealistic expectations. Many headlines present individual foods as miracle cures capable of preventing or reversing serious illnesses. In reality, human health depends on many interconnected factors working together. No single food, beverage, supplement, or probiotic can eliminate the risk of diseases such as cancer. Instead, long-term health is built through consistent lifestyle habits practiced over many years. A nutritious diet rich in vegetables, fruits, legumes, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and fermented foods may help support the body's normal biological functions. Regular physical activity, quality sleep, effective stress management, maintaining a healthy body weight, avoiding tobacco, limiting excessive alcohol consumption, and following evidence-based medical advice all contribute to overall wellness. For individuals living with cancer or any other serious illness, nutritional choices should be viewed as supportive measures rather than substitutes for professional medical treatment. Surgery, chemotherapy, Radiation therapy, targeted therapies, immunotherapy, and other physician-directed treatments remain the standard of care whenever they are medically indicated. Dr. James Waterling encourages people to work closely with qualified healthcare professionals while also taking an active role in caring for their own health through informed daily choices. Perhaps the greatest lesson from decades of nutrition research is that food is far more than fuel.